I kept my eyes on the report in front of me. Page 4. Regional account performance. Henderson Properties was 2 points under the target line because their procurement team had delayed approvals again. I had notes on that. Clean notes. Boring notes. The kind of notes nobody cared about unless the account started wobbling, and then suddenly everyone wanted to know who had seen it coming. I was good at that part. Seeing things early. Fixing small problems before they turned into big ones. Sending the email at 6:42 in the morning because I knew if I waited until 9, 3 other problems would be stacked on top of it. But I was not the man people called out in senior meetings. I was 29, a junior analyst at Sterling Rowe, and most people in that room only knew me because I sat near the glass wall and kept my desk too clean. I did not golf with partners. I did not come from a family with a name on a building. I did not have one of those loud, easy laughs that made older executives clap you on the shoulder. I showed up early. I checked the numbers twice. I went home tired. That was my whole brand. So when Ariana told me to stay after, my first thought was simple. I had missed something. The meeting kept moving. Martin Blackwood, one of the senior partners, leaned back in his chair and made a comment about market caution in the Eastern Corridor. 2 people nodded too fast. Someone from acquisitions asked a question they already knew the answer to. Ariana answered without looking at her notes. She always did that. Ariana Westfall was 36, calm in a way that made other people sit straighter. She did not raise her voice. She did not fill silence just because it was there. She could cut through a room with one sentence and make it sound like she was only asking for clarification. I had worked in the same building as her for 4 years. I had spoken to her maybe 8 times before that week, and most of those conversations had been about files, deadlines, or projections. Still, I noticed things. Everyone did. The way people laughed differently when she entered a room. The way partners who acted untouchable in the hallway suddenly softened their tone when she asked them to explain a number. The way she dressed like every detail had been decided before the rest of us woke up. That morning she wore a cream jacket, dark trousers, and a thin gold watch. Nothing flashy. Nothing wasted. I tried not to look at her too much after she said my name. That only made it worse. By the time the meeting ended, my notes had turned into a mess of half-written numbers and scratched-out words. Chairs pushed back. Laptops closed. People gathered folders, checked phones, and drifted toward the door. Martin Blackwood was one of the last to leave. He paused near Ariana and said something low enough that I could not hear it. Ariana looked at him for 1 second. "No," she said. That was it. Martin smiled like she had just complimented him, then walked out. When the door closed, the conference room felt too large. I stood up because sitting felt wrong. "Ms. Westfall, if this is about the Henderson file, I have the corrected version ready. I caught the variance last night and sent." "It is not about Henderson," she said. I stopped talking. Ariana did not stay at the head of the table. She picked up a folder from beside her laptop and moved to the chair directly across from mine. "Sit down, Adam." I sat. She placed the folder between us. It was black, thick, and had my name printed on a white label across the front. For a second, I just looked at it. "Open it," she said. My fingers felt strange when I reached for it, like they belonged to someone else. Inside was a formal letter on Sterling Rowe letterhead. I read the first line. Then I read it again because my brain refused to take it in the first time. Effective immediately, Adam Keating will assume the position of Senior Development Director. I looked up. Ariana watched me quietly. "This is a mistake," I said. "No. I mean, maybe the wrong file got printed." It did not. I looked back down at the page. Senior Development Director. Effective immediately. Salary adjustment. Direct reporting structure. Board acknowledgement. Office reassignment. Office reassignment. That detail hit me harder than the title. "I'm a junior analyst," I said. "You were a junior analyst." I let out a short breath that was almost a laugh, except there was no humor in it. There are people here who have been waiting for that role for years. I know. People older than me. Yes. People with more relationships. That is one word for it. I looked at her then. Really looked. Ariana opened the folder wider and turned to the next section. Charts. Tables. Account retention numbers. Project completion records. Regional risk reports. Client recovery outcomes. Notes from missed deadlines that had been fixed before anyone outside the project team knew there had been a problem. My work. Not all of it, but enough. "You thought no one was watching," she said. I did not answer right away, because she was right. She tapped one page with the back of her pen. Client retention in your assigned accounts is higher than any analyst group in the Southeast portfolio. Your project variance reports have been the most accurate for 7 straight quarters. Henderson, McAllister, East Bank, Calhoun Ridge. You flagged issues early on all 4. In 2 cases, your corrections protected the client relationship. I stared at the page. She kept going. The regional analysis you prepared last November was used in the board's expansion discussion. That was supposed to be internal support. It became more than that. Nobody had told me. Of course nobody had told me. That was how it worked. Someone lower did the digging. Someone higher presented the clean version. I had made peace with that a long time ago because peace was easier than being bitter. Ariana turned another page. Martin Blackwood wanted someone else placed in this position. I looked up again. She did not say it with anger. That somehow made it heavier. His candidate had support from 2 senior partners and a family connection with 1 board member, she said. It would have been convenient. Smooth. Socially acceptable. I knew exactly who she meant without her saying the name. Ben Crane. 34, expensive haircut, always near the right people at the right time. He called everyone buddy and somehow made it sound like an evaluation. What happened? I asked. I took the numbers to the board. Just like that. Not I fought for you. Not I believed in you. Not anything warm enough to misunderstand. The numbers. Ariana folded her hands on the table. You were not promoted because I like you, Adam. You were promoted because the data made every other choice weaker. For some reason, that made it easier to breathe. I could handle that. I understood work. I understood proof. I did not know what to do with favors, but I knew what to do with earned ground. Thank you, I said, and it came out quieter than I meant. You earned it. There was a pause. Then Ariana closed the folder halfway, but did not push it toward me yet. There is one more thing. Of course there was. I sat straighter. Martin is hosting a private reception tonight at his family estate, she said. Donors, investors, board members, senior partners. The kind of room where nothing official happens and everything important gets decided anyway. I waited. The promotion will already be circulating by then, she said. Martin will make sure of it. My stomach tightened. Ariana looked toward the window for the first time since we had sat down. Charlotte was bright behind her, all glass and sun and cranes in the distance. If I go alone, she said, it will look like I am retreating from my own decision. If I avoid the topic, they will fill the silence themselves. Then she looked back at me. I want you there. I blinked. At the reception? Yes. With you? Beside me. The room got very quiet again. She must have seen the question on my face because her expression sharpened slightly. Not as anything false, she said. Not as a show. Not as a personal cover. You would be there as the person whose promotion I am not apologizing for. I looked down at the folder again. A new title. A room full of people waiting to measure me. Martin Blackwood smiling politely while he tried to turn me into a problem. Yesterday, my biggest concern had been whether Henderson's revised numbers would clear before noon. Now the CEO of Sterling Rowe was asking me to stand next to her in a room that could decide whether my promotion lived or became office gossip before I even moved desks. I should have asked for time. I should have said I needed to think. Instead, I heard myself say, "What time?" Ariana's face changed. Not much, but enough that I saw it. Something in her shoulders eased. 7:30, she said. I will have the address sent to you. I nodded. She slid the folder toward me. When I picked it up, it felt heavier than paper had any right to feel. At the door, I stopped and turned back. Ms. Westfall? Yes. Why tell me Martin tried to block it? Ariana held my gaze. Because you are going to hear versions of this from people who want you uncertain, she said. I wanted you to hear the truth first. I nodded once because I did not trust myself to say anything clean. Then I left the conference room with a promotion I had not seen coming, an evening I was not ready for, and the strange feeling that, for the first time in years, someone important had been paying attention. By 6:30, I had tried on 3 shirts and hated all of them. That was not like me. I was not a 3-shirt man. I owned work clothes, gym clothes, and the kind of clothes you wore when you had to pick up groceries and did not want to run into anybody from the office. But Martin Blackwood's family estate was not a grocery store. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror in my best navy suit, trying to decide if the tie made me look professional or like a kid pretending to be invited somewhere. The suit fit well enough. I had bought it for my cousin's wedding 2 years earlier, And at the time my mother had said, "You finally look like someone with a business card." I did have a business card. It just still said junior analyst. I took the tie off, put it back on, then left it because I was already running late. Before I walked out, I opened the folder Ariana had given me one more time. Senior Development Director. My name under it. Effective immediately. It still looked like it belonged to someone else. The address Ariana's assistant sent me led out past the cleaner parts of Charlotte, through streets that got wider and quieter, with houses pushed far back from the road behind gates and long lines of trees. By the time I reached Martin's place, the sun was low and the sky had gone that soft orange color that makes expensive stone houses look even more expensive. There was a guard at the gate. Of course there was. I gave my name. He checked a list, nodded, and waved me through. The driveway curved uphill between trimmed hedges and old trees. Cars were already lined along the front circle. Black sedans, a silver Bentley, 2 Range Rovers that looked like they had never touched dirt in their lives. I parked where a valet pointed and stepped out, suddenly aware of every movement I made. Then I saw Ariana. She was standing near the front steps, not inside with everyone else. Waiting. That caught me off guard more than the house did. She wore a deep green dress, simple and fitted, with her hair pulled back in a way that made her look even more composed than usual. But when I got closer, I noticed her hand was wrapped around her phone a little too tightly. "Adam," she said. "Ms. Westfall." One corner of her mouth moved. "Tonight, Ariana is fine." I looked toward the house. "That might take me a minute." "It takes everyone a minute." She said it calmly, but there was something underneath it. Not nerves exactly. More like she was bracing herself before walking into cold water. I stopped beside her. "You waited outside? I thought it would be better if we entered together." "Right." The front doors opened before I could say anything else. Music and low voices drifted out. Ariana glanced at me once. "Remember," she said, "you do not need to impress them." That's good, because I'm pretty sure I left that skill at home. This time she actually smiled. It was small but real. Then we walked in together. The inside of Martin's house looked like a place designed for people to speak quietly about money. High ceilings, dark floors, art that probably cost more than my car, and flowers arranged like they had been measured with a ruler. People stood in groups of 3 and 4, holding glasses, laughing softly, watching everyone else while pretending not to. Ariana moved through them like she had done it all her life. "Margaret, good to see you." "Daniel, how was Atlanta?" "Adam Keating, our new Senior Development Director." Every time she said it, I felt the title land in the air. Some people smiled warmly. Some smiled carefully. A few looked me over with quick little glances that started at my shoes and ended at my face. I kept my answers short. "Yes, I've been with Sterling Rowe for years. Mostly regional development analysis. Henderson has been a priority account, yes." "No, I did not expect the role to open this quickly." That last answer got a few raised eyebrows. Ariana did not step in. She let me answer. Somehow that made me stand straighter. Martin appeared after maybe 20 minutes, like he had waited until enough people were watching. He wore a charcoal suit and a pale blue tie, and he looked exactly as comfortable as a man should look in his own family estate. "Ariana," he said, leaning in just enough to seem friendly without actually being warm. "You made it." I said I would. His eyes moved to me. "And Adam Keating." He held out his hand. "Congratulations. That is quite a step up. Junior analyst to senior director. Not something you see every day." His grip was firm. His smile was polite. Every word had a second meaning. "Thank you," I said. Ariana's voice came in smooth beside me. The results supported it. Martin looked at her, still smiling. I'm sure they did. There it was. Not an argument. Not an accusation. Just enough doubt for other people to hear it and carry it around. A woman with silver earrings joined us, and Martin introduced her as his wife, Lydia. She was elegant, sharp-eyed, and looked at Ariana like they had been smiling at each other across rooms for years. "Adam," Lydia said, "how exciting for you. You must be very grateful." "I am," I said. "It is a serious responsibility." Her smile thinned. "So grounded. That is rare." Ariana took a sip from her glass and said nothing. Dinner made everything worse. We were seated at a long table under soft lights. Ariana was on my left, Martin across from us, Lydia beside him. Board members and investors filled the rest of the table. The food was perfect, which made me trust it less. For the first 10 minutes, the conversation stayed harmless. Market shifts. A new hotel project outside Raleigh. Someone's daughter getting into Duke. Then a partner named Albright looked down the table at me. So, Adam, he said, how long have you worked directly with Ariana? The table did not go silent. That would have been too obvious. But it softened. I set my fork down. I have reported through the development analytics structure. Most of my work reached executive review through project channels. So not directly, he asked. Not usually. Ariana did not move. Albright nodded like he had learned something useful. Interesting. And yet she knew your work very well. She knew the account outcomes, I said. Those are documented. Martin dabbed the corner of his mouth with his napkin. Documentation can tell one story. Personal judgment tells another. I looked at him. Good thing both were aligned then. Someone gave a quiet laugh before covering it with a sip of water. Ariana looked down at her plate for half a second, and I could tell she was fighting a smile. Lydia leaned back slightly. I have always admired loyalty in employees. It is remarkable how devoted people can become when they have the right advocate. That one hit the table differently. I felt Ariana go still beside me. Not angry. Still. Like all the warmth had been pulled out of her at once. For a second, I wanted to answer. Not sharply, but enough to make Lydia wish she had said something else. I wanted to say that Ariana had back numbers, not loyalty. I wanted to say everyone at that table knew exactly what she was implying. But that was the trap. So I picked up my water glass. Good work makes advocacy easier, I said. Then I drank. No one had an easy follow-up for that. Ariana did not look at me, but under the table, I saw her hand relax against the edge of her chair. After dinner, the group broke apart into smaller conversations. I answered more questions. I listened more than I spoke. Martin drifted from person to person, always pleasant, always close enough to remind people that he had doubts without having to say the word. Near 10, Ariana touched my elbow lightly. Walk with me. We stepped through French doors onto the back terrace. The air outside was cooler, and the noise from the house dropped behind us. Below the terrace, the lawn rolled down toward a dark line of trees. Little lights marked the path like the whole place had been staged for a movie about people who never checked their own bank accounts. Ariana walked to the stone railing and looked out. You handled yourself well tonight, she said. I mostly try not to make anything worse. That is more than some senior partners manage. I stood beside her, leaving enough space that nobody looking from inside could turn it into something. For a moment, neither of us talked. Then she said, Martin will keep pushing. I figured. He will not attack the work first. The work is too clean. He will attack the reason behind it. He will imply I made a personal decision and dressed it up as performance. The way she said it made me turn toward her. She was not telling me a theory. She was telling me something she had already lived before, maybe more than once. And people will listen, I said. Some will. Some will pretend not to while listening very carefully. I looked back through the glass. Martin was inside, laughing with two men near the fireplace. Then we make sure the real story is louder, I said. Ariana looked at me. I shrugged. Numbers. Accounts. Results. If the room wants a story, give them one they can verify. For a few seconds, she just watched me. Why does this not scare you? She asked. It does. Her expression changed. I kept my voice low. I walked into this house tonight feeling like everyone could tell I did not belong here. I still feel that way, but fear is not the same as backing down. Ariana looked away first. That surprised me. She gripped the railing, then let go, like she had caught herself doing it. I did not ask you here only because I needed backup, she said. The words sat between us. I waited. She inhaled like she might finish the sentence, but then the CEO came back over her face. The careful control, the clean edge. You should go soon, she said. Separately. It will be better. I nodded. I did not ask what she had almost said. I wanted to, more than I should have, but pushing would have made it smaller. So I let the silence stand. A few minutes later, I said goodnight inside, shook Martin's hand again, and walked out alone. Ariana stayed behind near Margaret Smith, calm and perfect under the warm lights. When I reached my car, I looked back once. She was standing in the doorway, watching me leave. Only for a second. Then someone spoke to her, and she turned away. I drove back toward Charlotte with my tie loose, my hands tight on the wheel, and the strange certainty that the promotion was not the only thing that had changed that night. By 8 the next morning, the promotion had already turned into something else. I knew it before anyone said a word to me. The senior floor had a certain sound on normal days. Phones ringing. Heels on tile. Printers coughing out reports. People pretending not to rush while absolutely rushing. That morning, it had a different sound. Lower voices. Shorter conversations. The kind of quiet that happens when people are waiting for the person being discussed to walk past. I stepped off the elevator with my laptop bag over one shoulder and the folder Ariana had given me tucked under my arm. I had considered leaving it at home, then decided that was stupid. It was my promotion, my paperwork, my name. Still, I felt every eye shift and then pull away. Pete Nolan caught me near the break room before I reached my desk. Pete worked in project finance, 2 rows over from me, and he had the kind of face that made him look worried even when he was only choosing a sandwich. That morning, he looked worse than usual. "Hey," he said too quietly. "Morning." He glanced toward the hall, then back at me. "You got a second?" I followed him into the small copy room by the east windows. It smelled like toner and burnt coffee. Pete shut the door halfway, then left it cracked like he did not want anyone thinking we were hiding. Which, of course, meant we were hiding. "What's going on?" I asked. Pete rubbed one hand over the back of his neck. "There's talk." I almost laughed. That was fast. "Yeah, well, this place has never been slow when the news is ugly." "What are they saying?" He looked uncomfortable. "You sure you want the exact version?" "No, but tell me anyway." Pete lowered his voice even more. "That your promotion was personal. That Ariana pushed it through because her judgment is affected. That some people are worried accounts could suffer because you're not ready." There it was. Not loud. Not messy. Clean enough to spread. I stared at the printer for a second, watching the little green light blink like it had nothing better to do. "Who started it?" I asked, even though I already knew. Pete made a face. "Nobody starts anything here. It just appears fully dressed with a glass of wine." That actually did make me laugh once. Pete did not. "Adam, I'm serious. People are acting careful around you. That means they're waiting." "For what?" "For you to react wrong." I nodded slowly. That was the whole move. Martin did not need to prove anything. He just needed me nervous. One sharp comment in the hallway. One missed number. One meeting where I looked too defensive or too grateful, and suddenly the rumor had shape. A quiet junior analyst was one thing. A rattled new director was easier to question. "Thanks for telling me," I said. Pete studied my face. "You okay?" "No." "Yeah. But I know what to do." "What?" I picked up my bag. "The job." By 9:15, I had 3 new calendar invites, 2 cautious congratulations from people who had never once cared whether I existed, and 1 message from Ariana's assistant. "Ms. Westfall would like to see you." No time listed. Which meant now. Ariana's office sat at the corner of the top floor, with a view of Charlotte that made the city look organized from above. From the street, everything felt loud and uneven. From her window, even traffic seemed planned. She was standing behind her desk when I walked in, reading from a tablet. She looked up once. "Close the door." I did. She set the tablet down. "You've heard." "Yes." "What version?" "Personal promotion. Your judgment is affected. Accounts at risk." Her mouth tightened slightly, not enough for most people to notice. "Efficient," she said. That was one word I had for it. She looked at me for a moment. "What do you plan to do?" I had thought she might give me instructions. A statement. A warning. Maybe even some controlled executive version of comfort. Instead, she asked the question like the answer mattered. I put the folder on the chair beside me. "Finish the Henderson account review," I said. "Prepare the regional projections. Present clean work. Do the job." Ariana's expression softened. It was quick, but I saw it. "Good," she said. She came around the desk with the Henderson file in her hand. "Then sit down." For the next 2 hours, we worked like nothing else existed. No reception. No Martin. No rumor running through the floors under us. Just numbers. Henderson's revised costs. The Raleigh corridor comparison. Projected retention risk if the second phase timeline slipped. Incentive structures. Client concerns. Every item had to be cleaned because every person waiting for me to fail would be staring at whatever came out of my office first. Ariana sat beside me at the small conference table near the window, not across from me. That felt different. She read fast. She asked direct questions. She did not praise what did not need praise, and I liked that more than I expected. Halfway through, she tapped the margin of page 7. "This rounding is off." I leaned in, checked the table, and felt my stomach drop. She was right. It was small, not dangerous, not even visible unless someone followed the math through all 3 sheets. But it was there. For one hot second, embarrassment moved through me so fast I almost apologized too much. Instead, I said, "You're right." I opened my laptop, corrected it, and updated the link projection. Ariana watched me. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." That was not a nothing look. She leaned back. "Most people explain the mistake before fixing it. I made it. I fixed it." "Yes," she said. "You did." There was a quiet between us after that, not awkward exactly, just close. The professional trust felt heavier than flirting because neither of us was performing. She was not the untouchable CEO from the head of the table. I was not the junior analyst trying to stay invisible. We were 2 people sitting over a file, pushing through pressure with work sharp enough to survive it. Then Ariana's phone lit up beside her. She glanced at the screen, and something changed in her face. "Everything okay?" I asked. "My father heard about the promotion." I waited for the business part. It did not come. "He wants to meet you," she said. I looked up from the spreadsheet. "Your father?" "Yes." "As in for work?" Ariana held my gaze. "No." The room suddenly felt too quiet. I knew who her father was in the General Sterling Row way. Charles Westfall. Retired founder, old Charlotte name, still on 2 charity boards, and probably every private dinner list that mattered. People mentioned him like he was not just a person, but part of the building's foundation. "He wants to meet me because of the rumor?" I asked. "He wants to meet you because I mentioned you before the rumor." That landed harder. I closed my laptop halfway without meaning to. Ariana looked away first, toward the window. "This situation is getting complicated." I should have agreed. I should have said yes. Professionally, we need boundaries and clarity and careful steps. I should have said anything that sounded like a man who understood exactly how dangerous it was to be 29, newly promoted, and sitting too close to the woman who had changed his career overnight. Instead, I said, "I'm okay with complicated." Ariana turned back to me. For a second, there was no CEO in her face at all. Then her desk phone rang, and she stood up. "Finish Henderson by noon," she said, her voice steady again. "Regional projections by end of day." "Yes, ma'am." She paused. "Ariana," she said. I nodded. "Ariana." That was the first time I said her name in that office. By Thursday morning, I had slept maybe 10 hours total in 3 nights. The regional presentation was scheduled for 10 in the main boardroom. Full senior team. 2 board-level partners. Martin Blackwood sitting exactly where he wanted to sit, 3 seats from Ariana, close enough to be seen without looking too eager. I walked in with a clean deck, backup tables, sourced numbers, and a shirt I had ironed twice. Nobody joked. Nobody asked if I was ready. Ariana sat at the head of the table. She did not smile at me, but when I connected my laptop to the screen, she gave one small nod. That was enough. I started with the Raleigh-Durham corridor, moved into Charlotte industrial conversion risk, then walked them through the Henderson account position and the client strategy for the next 2 quarters. I kept my voice even. I cited every number. I had answers ready before the questions came. Albright pushed on the vacancy assumptions. I showed the 3-year comparison. Martin asked whether my retention forecast was optimistic for someone newly seated in the role. I clicked to the appendix. "It's based on renewal behavior across 17 comparable accounts," I said. "Not my seating arrangement." A few people looked down. Ariana did not. By the end, the room had changed. Not dramatically. Nobody clapped. This was Sterling Row, not a movie. But shoulders lowered. Pens stopped tapping. People began asking real questions instead of political ones. Margaret Smith, who had watched the whole thing without moving much, finally closed the printed deck in front of her. "This is the strongest regional breakdown we've had in years," she said. The room went still. Martin looked at the table. He said nothing. I thanked Margaret, closed the presentation, and sat down because my legs felt less steady than my voice had sounded. Ariana continued the meeting, moving straight into next steps like she had expected this all along. Under the table, where no one else could see, her hand found mine. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. Her fingers touched the back of my hand, light and warm, then slipped away. No look, no smile, no change in her voice. But I felt it through the rest of the meeting. And for the first time since she handed me that folder, I understood that the title was not the only risk in front of me. The job mattered. The rumor mattered. Martin mattered. But Ariana's hand, gone almost before it was there, mattered in a way I had no clean spreadsheet for. 2 weeks after the presentation, Martin Blackwood stopped smiling at me in the hallway. That was how I knew he was not finished. Before that, he had always been polite. Too polite. The kind of polite that made you check your shirt for coffee stains after he walked away. But after Margaret Smith called my regional breakdown the strongest in years, Martin changed tactics. He did not congratulate me. He did not question me directly. He just started passing me like I was part of the wall. That was worse. On a Tuesday morning, Pete found me outside conference room B with a stack of Henderson updates in my hand. "You here yet?" he asked. I looked at him. "That depends on what I'm supposed to have heard." Pete leaned closer. Martin requested a formal board review of the promotion process. I did not move for a second. There it was. Not the work. Not the presentation. Not the account results. Procedure. "What's the claim?" I asked. "Procedural gaps." I almost smiled because it was so clean. So Martin. He could not prove Ariana had made a bad call, so he was going after how the call was made. Pete searched my face. "You're weirdly calm." "I'm not calm. You look calm." "That's different." He gave me a tired little nod. "Fair." I spent the rest of the morning pulling every document I could find. Board approval record. Promotion criteria. Performance tables. Comparative candidate review. Timeline notes. Role requirements. Compensation authorization. Every file had a date. Every decision had a sign-off. And every number led back to something measurable. There were no gaps. Not small ones. Not hidden ones. Not the kind people pretend to find when they want a meeting to look useful. Ariana had built the whole thing like she expected someone to challenge it from the start. That evening, after most of the floor had emptied, my personal phone rang. "Ariana." I stepped into the small side hallway by the elevators before answering. "Hey," I said. There was a pause. I realized too late that I had never answered her that casually before. But she did not correct it. "Legal confirmed the process is clean," she said. "Documentation, board sequence, performance criteria. All of it." I checked the same. "I assumed you would." I leaned back against the wall and looked toward the dark office windows. "So now we wait. Now Martin gets the review he asked for." Her voice sounded controlled, but tired underneath. "Ariana," I said, "he's going to lose." "Yes." That should have been the end of it. It was not. She stayed quiet long enough that I knew the next question was not about board paperwork. "Do you regret any of it?" she asked. "Write in the comments. Would you keep choosing Ariana after the promotion turned into a board fight, or would you step back before love, power, and office politics became impossible to separate?" I stared at the carpet. The promotion. The estate. The terrace. The presentation. Her hand finding mine under the table for 2 seconds and changing the shape of every hour after it. "No," I said. "Not one part." I heard her breathe out softly. "I don't regret it either." Neither of us spoke for a moment after that. Then, somehow, the conversation kept going. Not about Martin. Not about Henderson. Not about who might be watching us from behind glass doors. She told me her father had asked whether I was as quiet in person as she made me sound. I told her that depended on how many board members were in the room. She laughed, and it sounded different through the phone. Less guarded. We talked about a book she had bought 3 years earlier and never finished because she kept taking it on work trips and falling asleep on page 40. I told her about the sandwich place near the office that looked terrible from the outside, but had the best lunch special in Uptown. She admitted she had lived in Charlotte most of her life and still had not gone into the little bookshop on Tryon because every time she passed it, she was late to something. The call lasted an hour, maybe more. When we hung up, I stood in that hallway with my phone in my hand, feeling like the review had become the least complicated thing in my life. 12 days later, the board review happened in a glass-walled room on the top floor. I wore the navy suit again, the same one from Martin's estate, but this time I did not feel like I was borrowing another man's clothes. Ariana sat on one side of the table. I sat 2 chairs down from her. Martin sat across from us, calm, polished, perfect. Margaret Smith led the panel with 2 other board members beside her. It was not dramatic. That was what made it satisfying. Margaret walked through the timeline. The role opening. Candidate comparison. Performance records. Board approval. Ariana's recommendation. Supporting data. She asked questions, but not the kind meant to create noise. Real questions. Clean questions. Ariana answered each one. When they asked me about my prior responsibilities, I answered without adding extra words. When they asked about Henderson, I gave dates. When they asked about regional analysis, I pointed to the submitted reports. Martin barely spoke. He did not need to. His request had already done its damage. Or it had tried to. At the end, Margaret closed the file in front of her. The promotion followed correct procedure at every measurable point, she said. The performance basis was documented, reviewed, and approved. No further inquiry is warranted. No one clapped. Again, Sterling Rowe. But something lifted in the room. Martin stood, buttoned his jacket, and gave a small nod like the outcome had been exactly what he expected. Of course. Then he left quietly, too polished to show anything. Across the room, Ariana looked at me. I gave her one small nod. She returned it. That was enough. 3 weeks later, we had lunch on a Saturday. Not a work lunch. Not a strategy lunch. Not a meeting disguised as a meal. Just lunch. I still arrived 10 minutes early because I was me. Ariana arrived exactly on time because she was Ariana. She wore jeans, a white blouse, and sunglasses pushed into her hair, and for a second I forgot how to say hello like a normal person. We ate at a small place near the park where nobody from Sterling Rowe was likely to be. At first we were careful. Too careful. We talked about safe things. Food. Traffic. A new project downtown. Then Ariana told me her father had once tried to fix a kitchen sink himself and flooded half a hallway. I laughed so hard I had to put my glass down. She looked surprised by her own smile. After that, everything got easier. Lunch turned into a long walk. The walk turned into the bookshop on Tryon. Inside, Ariana moved slower than I had ever seen her move anywhere. She ran her fingers along the backs of books, picked one up, read the first page, put it back, then picked it up again. You know, I said, buying it is allowed. I'm deciding. You make board decisions faster than this. Board decisions have fewer good covers. Outside the shop, with a paper bag in her hand, she stopped near the curb. I said yes to Sunday lunch with my father, she said. I looked at her. And I want you to come. There were easier ways she could have said it. Softer ways. Safer ways. But Ariana did not hide inside easy words. So I nodded. Then I'll come. 6 months later, nobody in the office whispered about the promotion anymore. Henderson closed at one of the strongest numbers Sterling Rowe had seen from that account in years. 2 new regional clients signed after the strategy rollout. Margaret Smith recommended my work publicly in a partner meeting, which made 3 people suddenly act like they had supported me from the beginning. Martin was moved into a consulting role. Nobody called it a demotion. Nobody had to. By then, Ariana and I were no longer pretending that everything between us fit neatly inside office hours. We were careful when we needed to be, honest where it mattered. And when the time came to tell the people who needed to know, Ariana did not apologize then either. One night, I stood in her apartment near the windows, looking out at the Charlotte skyline. The city was all lights and glass, busy below us, quiet where we stood. Ariana came up beside me with 2 mugs of coffee. The best decision I made, she said, was not the one the board approved. I looked at her, even though I knew exactly what she meant. What was it? She gave me that small, controlled smile I had learned usually meant she was feeling more than she wanted to show. You, she said. I took the mug from her, but I did not look away. The promotion opened the door. That was true. But what we built after walking through it, step by careful step, was not something Martin could challenge, or the board could review, or the office could turn into gossip. It was our decision, and neither one of us regretted it.